Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Aaron, I'm the Brick Scavenger, and we are back with another Bricklink tutorial video. I just want to show you another tip and trick that I use to identify both minifigures and what sets a part might come from. So we're going to use these four as an example. Hopefully this is helpful for you.
Okay, so as we get started, I do want to promote Brickignise, WhatFig, any app that actually takes a picture of your item and then gives you suggestions on what it might be. Those are super helpful and should be your number one go-to. But those don't always work. You might be in a situation where you can't do that for some reason, and you want to kind of hunt through Bricklink to find things. So that's what we're here to do today. So let's start with that red torso. You may have seen it was a red torso with red arms and reddish brown hands. Let's say that you know that much. So I'm going to type in the word hand, and it's going to pull up 983 the hand. So I'm going to click on that, and the first thing you're going to see is that there are 13,000 minifigures that have a hand of some color. Okay, so that may or may not be that helpful to you, but let's narrow it down. Let's say we want to find this red torso. I'm going to click on the minifigures, and it will then take a minute because 13,000 is a lot, but that's now going to bring up a breakdown of by color which figures have, a hand of a given color. So you can see that there are 752 minifigures that have at least one white hand. There are 82 minifigures that have a blue hand, etc. So if I go over here, we know ours are reddish brown. So there are 276 minifigures that have been made that have a reddish brown hand. So I'm going to click on that. Now, so far, this may not be news to you. This may not be all that helpful, but there is a reason I'm bringing this to your attention because some people don't know what makes this a little bit easier. What you could do is scroll through all these minifigures looking for your minifigure. But like we said, it's almost 300 minifigures that you're scrolling through, right? But what can be helpful here is if you click on this summary right here. If you click on the summary, what you're going to see is it will further now break down all of the minifigures that have reddish brown hands, but by theme, okay? Now, if you don't know the theme of the torso, obviously this may not help you a ton, but if you can look at it and go, man, I think that thing was from Harry Potter, or I think that thing is probably from Star Wars, you can click on one of these themes and it'll help break it down. In this case, you might look at that and correctly recognize that you think it's a Star Wars themed fig, but you're not sure which one. At this point, you can click on it and you can see that Lego has made 68 minifigures that have reddish brown hands, or at least one, and fall under the Star Wars category. So now 68 is still a lot to scroll through, but it's a whole lot less than 13,000, and it's a whole lot less than 300. And at this point, because I know the torso is red, I can kind of quickly scroll through these looking for a red torso until hopefully I find what I'm looking for. Haven't stumbled on it yet, but I haven't really seen a red torso yet. There's a red torso right there. And if I click on this, yes, that actually is the torso. And so this minifigure is the Naboo fighter pilot Star Wars 0340. Okay, so that can be really helpful to you if for whatever reason the picture taking app is not working, or you're trying to sift through Bricklink to find a whole bunch of figs that have the same color hand, or whatever your purpose may be. So that's example number one. Let's talk example number two, that full minifigure that you were looking at there, that dark red minifigure. Maybe you're looking at that and you think to yourself, I don't know what this is. The picture isn't working, but man, it's got that Indiana Jones hat, right? Maybe you know that it's got the Indiana Jones hat, but beyond that, you don't know for sure. You don't know the part number for the Indiana Jones hat. What you can do is you could type in Indiana Jones into the search and go to minifigures, and you can see, here's one with that hat, right? So I can click on that now, and I can go to Indiana Jones is made of 4 different parts here, including the hat, scroll down to the hat, and now here's what's helpful. There are 68 minifigures that have had this reddish brown hat. Actually, I take that back. That is not the reddish brown hats. That is all the minifigures that wear that hat of any color. So if I click on this now, this is going to pull up all of the minifigures that have that hat in a variety of colors. And once again, use the summary tab here to click on that, and that will break it down by color. You can see now that there are 27 figures that have that hat in tan. Okay, so if I click on that, now I should be able to quickly scroll through, look for that dark red figure, and sure enough, there he is. That is invisible. Okay, so if you can use a hand or an arm color, that's fine, but in some cases there may be tons of figures that, fall under the white hands category in this case. But if there is a unique part that you can recognize, like the Indiana Jones hat, that may help you break it down even more. Let's talk about that black hair piece. This is kind of a similar deal where I don't know what minifigure this black hair piece might go to, but I sure recognize this hair piece as the mold of the Ezra Bridger hair, right? And you may not know that, but you may come across a piece where you recognize it from some minifigure. So in this case, I'm going to type in Ezra Bridger, and actually, if you look at this, the Ezra Bridger has black hair. I was thinking it had brown hair, but it actually does indeed have black hair. But let's continue as an example so that we can further talk about how this works. If I click on the parts, again, this hair piece mold is 88283. If I click on that, you can see Lego has actually made 115 minifigures that use this hair mold, again, in all the different colors, right? So if I click on that, it is now going to bring up all the figures that have that hair mold, right? Now, if I click on summary, I can now break it down by color, and I can actually see this may not be Ezra hairs because there are 36 minifigures that have this in black, right? So if you have it in a different color, you could check on any of those, but let's just click on black just to take a look at some of these. This thing has appeared in several Star Wars figs, obviously, some CMF things, even some superhero things, right? So it may be that this wasn't actually Ezra Bridger's hair. It belonged to Kylo Ren, or maybe it belonged to Morrow from Ninjago, right? But again, you can find out all the different figs that have it in a specific color. Using this summary tab is very helpful. Let's talk one more piece. And that piece is that dark tan kind of roof piece that we showed. Again, I am going to try using Bricklink to make this happen because I think it'll work a little bit better. So I have Bricklink ready to go. Here is Bricklink right here. If I click on this and then click on that, Bricklink should recognize it. There it is, right? So let's say I bought up a collection of sets that were all mixed together. I was trying to figure out what sets were in there, and there were a ton of these in there in dark tan, and I don't know what set it might belong to. Let's say there's like 10 or more of these, right? So I find this piece, and again, you can see now that this thing belonged to, this thing appeared in 173 different sets, and that includes all the different colors that it's been made in. If I click on those 173 sets, you can see I can scroll through. It starts with the white ones, and I can scroll through and probably find a different color, the dark bluish gray or whatever, right? But again, use the summary tab. If I click on the summary tab, I can break it down by color. So now you can see that there are 13 sets that this thing has appeared in the dark tan color. But I do want to point out one more thing to you here that can be very useful. And that is this number right here, which you may or may not have actually paid attention to. And that will indicate how many of these dark tan pieces appeared in this set. So if in my giant kind of collection of messy parts, I found 10 or more of these, it's probably unlikely that it was from this alien pack, right? Because only one of these appeared in the alien pack. So if I scroll down, there's 4 that appeared in the Egalt the Master Dragon. I Am Groot had 10 of them, so that may be where it came from. The Medieval Town Square had 15 of them, so that may be where it came from. And you can see that there's a handful more that had 10 or more. The point being, it's another good way to narrow it down, not only by mold, by color, but then also by the quantity. And you may or may not have ever paid attention to this number right here. So there you go. Hopefully that's helpful to you as you're searching around Bricklink, whether you're trying to identify a set or a minifigure, or just kind of figure out how else that piece could be used. Another Bricklink tutorial in the books. If you had fun and you want more Bricklink tutorials or other adventures that I'm going on with Lego, feel free to hit that subscribe or like button. Thank you guys very much for being here. We'll see you next time.